Is this working? All right. Well, good morning. Thank you all for coming. This is one of our larger crowds, so either we have hit the right generation with Dr. McConahey, or some of you are just wanting to be here to learn today. And I appreciate you coming. As we've mentioned, there's coffee and donuts in the back. There's a free will basket if you like. I say that, I usually don't, but the county is looking at cutting us $133,000. And if that happens, we're probably not going to have many more Princess Cafes. So if you know county commissioners, feel free to put a bug in their ear that you'd like to be able to keep coming out here and learning about your history and eating coffee and donuts. And now I'm going to just let Dr. McConahey tell you about his times as a battalion surgeon in World War II. Dr. McConahey?
Thank you. Very glad to be here with you. If you can't hear me, speak up and I'll talk a little louder.
I think, hang on, we'll get
This is the one that comes down.
Yeah, we've got it.
That's better. Okay, good enough. I'll need to near this one. Well, Vanessa talked to you about my work as a battalion surgeon in World War II. I might say I've talked about this before, but in other places. So if you heard it before, you may have your coffee and donuts and walk out. Well, to begin with, I'll talk mostly about my work in the European theater of war with the 90th Division in Europe, in Utah Beach and through Normandy, etc. Well, I first began my career after my internship in 1943. And I joined the Army in July then, and first went to Camp Carson, Colorado, where I was with the 71st Light Division, a new one being formed to try how this worked in the U.S. Army. The Light Division meant we were mid-mountain because the high mountain got our ski shoes. We had no skis, we had only pack mules to carry our stuff in. We walk up and down the Rocky Mountains with pack mules and stuff we carried in our backs, and that's the whole thing we did for the whole fall and winter. Then about January, I transferred to the 9th Division, going overseas as a battalion surgeon. Now what's a battalion surgeon? What do they do? Where is he? What's it all about? Well, each division has 3 regiments. Each regiment has 3 battalions. Each battalion has 1 aid station with it, where I was. I was in charge of the aid station to take care of the sick men in the clinic and the unit, and also the wounded. So we worked there as a group in the 9th Division. And during the war then, of course we were all unarmed. We carried no weapons. We all had Red Crosses on our helmets, 4 on 4 sides. Red Cross flag in our jeeps, and the Red Cross bassards in our arms. And the Germans had signed the Geneva Convention. They would not kill medics deliberately. They usually didn't. Now and then they did. And I know my life has saved many times not being shot at by German soldiers in the rifle sights. So I know this is true. And I was shot at now and then, of course, but not too often. Luckily I missed each time too. Well, then my job was to take care of the wounded in battle. With me had 32 enlisted men, 1 assistant battalion surgeon, who with me was a captain, who was a dental officer. Well, I had 12 enlisted men who were up in the company aid men, in front line taking foxholes with the infantry. And they'd be up there during the battle, and you know, medic, and they'd jump up under the guy and do the best they could in dressing. And they'd call back and tell us that they had a walkie-talkie, so we could send a litter jeep up. I also had 8 litter bearers and 2 jeeps and 2 jeep drivers who would drive to the front before they could go in the jeep, get out and walk across the fields, find the wounded, and bring it back to the aid station. And then with me were 10 men who were simply technicians. And here I was called a battalion surgeon. He had a doggone little surgery. It was all saving lives, saving lives, saving lives. Stopping bleeding as fast as we could. Then getting the wounds cleaned out, often full of debris with torn uniforms, dirt, and the grass in these things. But the best way we could, and sprinkling some sulfa powder. We had no penicillin. In the hospital, we didn't have it. The sulfa powder sprinkled in there and packed them with sterile dressings, pack them wide open. And then we would set fractures, and we would give lots of blood plasma. We had no whole blood, but we had blood plasma. What was this? Well, blood plasma is simply a dried protein part of the blood, no red cells in it. We had 2 bottles. One bottle, 8-ounce bottle with the blood plasma in the bottom, a sterile bottle packed under vacuum, a bottle of water, sterile water, 8 ounces in the bottle, packed under pressure. Put them together with a double-ended needle, it suck out the water in the other bottle. In a matter of seconds, you have a whole bottle of blood plasma. We shot this in right in there, about a dozen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 in one guy. Get them out of shock. They're often in shock. Once you're out of shock, you get them out the morphine too for pain. Once you're out of shock and no longer in pain, we then put an ambulance, send it back to the rear of the collecting company, which was back about 4 or 5 miles, where they would look them over. Went back to the clearing company, about 10 miles back farther. Almost a small hospital, a couple of surgeons there. No emergency surgery if needed. If they were any worse hurt, they'd go back to the back hospital on the beaches, maybe to England, maybe back home. But the chain of command we had them back into wounded. Now we had with us these very 2 men that had us dead, and we worked hard and worked for a long time on that. Well, what did I do then? After I got to, I left the Camp Colorado, in Camp Carson, Colorado, and went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, to join the 9th Division, going overseas, ready to go, all trained, ready to take off. So we got ready, organized, set up, and then we got a cruise ship in New York Harbor, and a huge convoy went across the Atlantic in March. And it was a rough crossing. Luckily, I've never been seasick. No problem to me, but for the GIs and down in the hold, stacked 3 high in hammock, holy smokes, one got vomited. They all were sick. It was a mess down there. Poor guys were up hanging the rails most of the time. It was a tough crossing with those guys. Well, the good thing was the Germans subs couldn't hit us very well in the rough water. We got to England all right, and went into Camp Kidderminster near Birmingham, trained some more, and they were going to go somewhere. They said, "Oh, where?" Well, exactly, we knew it was coming from a D-Day somewhere. Would it be Normandy? Would it be France? Would it be Norway? Would it be Spain? Would it be Italy? Would it be Greece? Where would it be? We didn't know at all. Somewhere, we thought. While we were there, we had radios. We would turn them on, listen to German propaganda sometimes. Now, they played lots of good music for us. And they would give us all the old songs, the big bands, Bing Crosby and the rest of these. And one gal was called Access Sally. She said, "Hello, Yanks. You're here in England, I know. What are you doing here, Yank? You homesick? Of course you are. Why are you here? We know. They're the Jewish capitalists and warmongers and bankers in Wall Street. They want you to come over here and die for them. They're making money, you know. You're going to die over here. What you doing? John Bulldog like his men died to you. No, you guys, you know, I'm going to play some good music for you now pretty soon, but remember those nights you'd sit in the backyard, summer nights, with the special girl in your arms, and you'd say, 'I love you.' You snuggle close and say, 'I love you too.' And they say, 'Well, you know, Yank, we'll never see her again. We're going to die here. We can't get across our impregnable Atlantic wall. There's no way. And where's the music? I'll be seeing you.' And play the popular song. And Lord Haw-Haw'd come on. 'Well, Yank, here you are, over here in England. Why? The Jewish capitalists and warmongers and making money in Wall Street. You're over here to die, you know. You can't get to the shore here. No way. You know, you're waiting for D-Day. What's it going to be? We don't care what it's going to be. You can we'll hurl your corpse back off the Atlantic Wall. Whatever it is. What's the D stand for? Death of each of the Yep and Dunkirk. Well, didn't bother us too much, but didn't exactly believe us. Well, we then, on about the 4th of June, went to Chepstow, England, and landed on some ships there. And we finally sat there for a full day. What's going on? Well, it turned out D-Day had been moved back one day, on the 5th and 6th. We didn't know that. On the 5th and 6th, we sailed out of harbor, and then they told us that we were going to win Utah Beach and Normandy. But the 4th Division would make the beachhead at Utah. This wasn't bloody Omaha, fortunately. And one of our combat team, the 59th Infantry, would make the beach with them. The rest of us come in D+2. Well, except that night before we landed, I thought I'd like to write one more last letter to my wife. Maybe I didn't write nothing, I don't know. Couldn't think to say, so I simply said, I love you. But I thought, can I do my job? I don't know. Could I really do it? Will I crack up? I don't know. Nobody knew. Hoped I could. Well, we got on D+2 on June 8th. I stepped on the deck of our ship, looked around, tremendous sight. Everywhere were ships. Way out in the ocean, great cruisers and battleships firing salvos into the shore where the Germans were ahead of us. And troop ships unloading troops and supplies everywhere. Destroyers weaving in and out. And it was quite a picture. We got my men together. We had to go down pretty soon to land. We had heavy stuff to carry. We all had heavy packs to carry. A lot of aid equipment. Entrenching shovels, of course, we carried. Canteen bottles. Lots of aid equipment. We also had the gas masks with us in case the Germans threw gas at them, they might. And we had those life jackets. It came time to go, so I got my men with me. We climbed down the rope ladders to the cargo nets into the little landing craft bouncing below the water, got aboard, and started inland. And we got to the beach almost. We dropped the ramp down, up into the water to our armpits almost, waded ashore, so we went. We dropped off our life jackets and then started walking up on the main road towards the rendezvous point. This had been cleared of mines by the engineers. All around the sign in the fields marked Oxygen mining. Germans had mined all the fields, of course, leaving in the field, obviously. Well, we walked up the road for some 8-10 miles, then stopped, pulling up the field. The rest of the division was. We organized that night to get things ready to go. We told we were going to attack at dawn on the 10th of June. So we're leaving the 2nd Airport. They jumped ahead of us, take their position. They're fighting the Germans up in front of us. So we all set, but midnight, on the 9th, we lined up to go up to the front. And the rifleman going ahead, and I was walking behind with my aid men and my medical equipment. Walked up behind them, and almost going to jump off and attack. Pulled out in the fields and waited. Well, about dawn then, the attack started. I got my men with me, walked up the road a little bit, looked down across the bridge on the other side. Not much of a bridge, of course, but the Germans had dammed up all the retreats in the area. There were now great floods everywhere. The only way across was across the bridge, which was under fire by a German gun. Shells on near it now and then. So I waited until the shell came in. Let's go. Ran across there as fast as I could with my men. And then there I was in battle. I can never forget the first sign of battle. Tremendous noise. I didn't realize about that. Shells dropping here and there. Men shouting. Burned out tanks and trucks on the roads. Dead bodies of Germans and Americans lying here and there on fields and roads. And everywhere the stringing odor of cordite in my eyes and my nose was burning. It was a tremendous experience. I can't ever replace it. I can't forget it. Well, walked up the road with my men, and the shell hit ahead of us, about 50 yards up ahead of us. Yelled, "Lenny!" We ran up there, and 5 guys had been hit. 2 were dead. 1 was badly hurt. 2 lesser hurt. I left my men to manage them up. And when I had to get as fast as I could to find a place for my aid station for the attack about to start in front of us. Now, the aid station, well, we kept as close as we could to the front lines because we had no helicopters in, you see. We had to go get them ourselves. And so what we do, as I said, is the front lines were set up. We'd be maybe a quarter of a mile behind or behind a big hill in the Germans so they wouldn't see us and get to work right there. Well, the attack, well, at first I found an aid station. Walked up the road, and finally found a little lane off a little French house on the right side there. And I turned in there. They did, I saw that right in front of us was a big tree under which the German anti-tank was sitting, flying down the road early the day before. I was able to hit it, turned the gun over, and killed the crew. They were up in the tree, bit me down like moss. The dead guys hanging up the trees up there. We walked into the little house right there on the lane, and there was an empty French house, moved in, main aid station. My guys came and all set up in there. I stepped outside to look around, and suddenly, I got a machine gun pistol. It both hit my door about 4 inches of my head. I fell on the floor and crawled back in across the doorway. A German sniper in a tree outside seemed to take a shot at me. Thought he'd miss me. The 82nd Airborne guys were also in the barn near the house. They heard him. Came out, shot him up the street. Well, we got some wounded back from the attack up front, but not too many. The attack hadn't gone well. They pulled way back. And the colonel said, we're going to walk back now around to the rear, attack from the other side, from the flank, 8 o'clock tonight. Now 6 p.m. Got my men with me, and our equipment. We followed some trees, we walked around, came to the place to stop, and they had the hedgerows, the infantry did. And they didn't tell us a thing about hedgerows in Normandy. But here they were terrible things. They were, the enormous farmers for years had simply piled up big piles of dirt to mark the 4 parts of their fields, not fences. These are now 6 to 8 feet high, with great trees growing on them, bushes and brambles. Getting across those things was terrible. Once they did, the Germans shot you down on the other side as you came across. So it was very, very costly to do this. Well, I made my first big mistake. I don't know how much you practice and train in training. You don't know what to do to get there in battle. You don't know. If you do it wrong, you either die or you don't do it again. I learned the hard way this time. Because we got my men behind me, we sat down right behind the infantry on the hedgerow. Well, about 8 o'clock, the attack started. And all hell broke loose. There were shells dropping around us in the field, bullets going over our heads. We couldn't do a doggone thing lying out in that field. So we crawled back across the thing on hands and knees, found a sunken road and climbed into it, and walked up the road for a 1/4 mile, found an old house and an aid station. Second aid group joined us. Now there's 2 aid station groups together working. And for 5 flaming days and nights, we worked and worked and worked. And attack after attack after attack across those horrible hedgerows went on. When we came back in tremendous numbers. We didn't eat much at all, didn't sleep much, didn't do much except work. And they came back about a dozen. So many came back, we couldn't get them all back in ambulances. We had to send them back 2.5-ton trucks back to the rear. I've never seen such wounds. Arms off, legs off, bellies ripped open, chest ripped open. One guy walked in, the entire lower jaw was shot off. Another guy came in, young man, 19-year-old kid, hit the head with a piece of shrapnel, gone through his helmet, through his skull. And maybe enough, didn't do much damage there, but the optic nerves cross like this. The optic eye has them. They cross like that. Where you have your vision. It was hit, torn up, you never see it again, blind from then on. These guys kept coming back and coming back and coming back. Finally, in 5 days, the thing stopped. We pulled back for a short time, and started again. Now the infantry were helpless in the hedgerows almost. They would get across and catch a few here and there. They had tank help, but the tanks couldn't do a thing because they couldn't get across the hedgerows until some smart tanker figured out what to do, a mechanic. He put a bulldozer blade in front of a tank. We call them tank dozers. They come charging up and burrow right through the hedgerow with guns firing, riflemen behind them. Going to be some headway at that time then. Well, now, I might say that this is during a time we're fighting here in Normandy. This map here shows you. We come in like England and here. We're all right about in here. We later came across Europe, Battle of the Bulge, that was Czechoslovakia here, but this time was right back in Normandy, where we're fighting right here. Well, yeah. We came across, by the way, our division had the most number of days in combat of any division in European theater. The second highest casualty rate. You know, the casualties come in the rifle platoons, the big one. Our rifle platoons of the division are made up of 3,200 men. We had, during the war from Normandy to Czechoslovakia, over 15,000 casualties. Replaced 5 times over. The guys who came in there for about 6 weeks knew who they were. They're all new, come in. We used to have a company commander had about 2 months to live, 2 leader about 2 weeks. That's about right. And the guys were shot down right and left. Well, we finally fought our way through all the stuff in Normandy and got over to the, finally on the eastern side, over here, a place called Fort Bale. And here we had a big fight there. My aid station was again about a mile or so behind the front lines. And we had in a great big French barn with about 3-foot thick French stone walls. We worked there, and then one night, I got word, one day it was, that there were some wounded up in the front lines, 3 of them that hit. One would help, so I sent my letter squad out. They came back and couldn't make it. And fired upon by a German machine gun. Well, later sent another squad out to get them. They couldn't get them. They got hit by a mortar fire. Now getting dark. I didn't think we could get those guys out. I knew. Remember what General Patton said? Well, leader, you got to lead. So I said, I want 3 little birds to be volunteers. I'll be the 4th. You get those guys out of there. 3 guys stepped forward, walked out and got in a jeep, and drove up to the front, got off the jeep carrying litters, and walked across the fields. The fields up there, in the dark now. Might be hit by Germans or by Americans, who knew what? We're sure where we were. We finally found the company commander in a foxhole. I'll give you a runner, take you to the front line so the guys are hurt. Runner took us up there. I got right on a long road, there was a southern road in front of us. And they knelt down to take care of these 3 wounded guys. And I said to the runner, where are the Germans? They were right across that road. Well, help me any. I found one guy was dead. Second guy had a bad concussion in his head, an injury there. Third guy had a compound fracture of his leg. Put one guy on a litter, carried him on back to the jeep, came back across the dirt and the grass. The second guy brought him back in a jeep, took him on back to the aid station, moved in there, took care of him. 2 nights later, the same place. One of the company had come back in reserve, and a guy that dug foxholes right along beside the aid station there. During the night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden, tremendous firefight broke out right outside the aid station. There were bullets ricocheting off the walls. There were hand grenades, men shouting in German, English, rifles, fire, pistol fire. It was a mess. We lay on the floor and looked what happened. And my assistant commander said, Mac, he said, you're cold jumping, I'm shaking. I don't know, I'm not cold, I'm shaking too, I'm scared. We lay there, nothing we could do. I hope nothing happened to us. So maybe we run by the door, even a hand grenade and wipe us out. Well, about dawn, the whole thing stopped. It turned out 150 Germans were coming south. And by mistake ran into these guys dug in the foxholes up there. The big fight taking place. So about dawn, the thing stopped. All the Germans were killed, captured or wounded. And they brought about 25 to 30 wounded men, half Americans, half Germans. We took care of them all in the aid station, sent them on back as fast as we could. Well, then we fought across Normandy, of course, Bale up in here. We came on down like this to the Mons in there, right in there. Well, during this time across there, I had many very narrow escapes, as we all did. And I'll mention several of them. One of them, I was going back to my city collecting, see where they were. And I came back to my aid station. I got lost, didn't take the right turn off. Came on down the road, a couple of miles, and got behind German lines by mistake. The first we knew, it came on a curve, and there, down the road, was a big German tank gun, waiting to fire the first tank or truck came on that curve. They said, with the cross flag on the Jeep, saw the cross on the helmets and their arms, they didn't fire. All around were German soldiers, big as foxholes, the rifle left and said, look, I'm surprised that we rolled by them. Well, the driver jammed the brakes on, none of them fired at us. We put the Jeep in reverse, going as fast as we could around the curve, got out there. Another time, going down the road, I stopped looking at my map, pulled off in the field, and looking ahead. In a couple of minutes, another Jeep came down the road where we'd been, hit a mine, blew up and killed them. They hit it, we'd straddled it. Another time I was talking to my Jeep driver, about 2 foot apart or so. In the foot of the Jeep, we had the map lying there talking about this. And the ping, water running, what happened? The bullet got between us, hit the Jeep, knocked out the radiator, water was running out. It hit one of us about 60 feet one left or right. He wasn't got hit. One time a bomb was coming down, real close to me, I knew it. German attack one night coming over us. Came closer and closer and closer. Hit pretty close, but didn't go off. The dud. Well, time and again, these things happen. I don't know why, but what I mean, I guess. We fought across here then. We got down to here, and not there. And then the German army was here, you see. 7th Army tried to break a line here. And the army general wanted to pull back the Seine River in Paris, hold the line there. They said, no, you can't do that. You got to break the lines there and take care of the Americans. Well, they couldn't. And the British came down from the north, we from the south, and we caught the Germans a big attack called the Filet Gap. And we captured 12,000 soldiers in one day in our division. Many of the guys did get out before we closed the gap, but they lost everything, all their equipment. I went through that place after the thing had happened because the Germans had been coming down this corridor there with British shooting from the north, we from the south, airplanes coming over, artillery hitting from both sides. And I walked through there, I call it the Valley of Death, because it was a colossal mess. Everywhere were burned out, damaged German trucks, jeeps, tanks, dead bodies on the road, you bump across them now and then. They had a lot of horses. I didn't realize that. The Germans had a lot of horse-drawn artillery and supply trucks. And they had great tanks, of course, but most of the stuff was horse-drawn, artillery too. And here were all these horses still hitched up in their harnesses, fighting to get out. One horse who got loose running across the field with his guts hanging out. It was horrendous. When we went along, a lot of German, a lot of French military persons were in their basements. They'd been wounded, some of them had. We stopped and took care of some of the wounded French people there. And came on back, but what a colossal mess this was. We then swung east and came down like this, and then over to south of Paris, and then turned north, and we went across then into a place called Reims, and then Metz, and here's the Metz here. Metz was a very heavily fortified area, fortified by the French. The Germans now held it. This was impossible to get through. All these huge forts along here. We tried and couldn't make it. We finally crossed the Moselle River north, came around the south behind them, and took it that way, going east into Germany. We then got November or so. It got really cold now, and wet. Rain, rain, rain. All the roads disappeared in the mud. Mud from my knees. I walked through this stuff. And the tanks had trouble getting through it. The big army trucks could do it, but our little jeeps had trouble making this ridiculous ruts. We finally got through them, however, by pushing a thing sometimes. We were covered in mud the whole way. I didn't have my clothes off for about the first 3 or 4 months in combat. Made my shoes all the time, ready for any time to get fired on. So I got the Metz then, so we got around that and headed east, got into Germany, went across the Saar River into the Siegfried Line, started fighting there. And then came December 16th, Battle of Bulge up north. The Germans came down, of course, and they thought that maybe they might come down here and hit us down here. So they had us turn north. They didn't come. We then turned farther north, moved up to hit the top Belgian flank of the Battle of Bulge. And that is one of the worst wars I can think about. Tremendous casualties in the Battle of Bulge, one of the highest U.S. Army's records. Over 100,000 guys were killed during that big battle in Luxembourg. Terrible weather, cold weather on record, deep snow. It was miserable. Lots of frostbite, some trench foot. Both they got to get back in a hurry to lose their feet if they did. A guy was wounded out in the front lines. You had to pick him up in a hurry. He got freed to death. It was miserable. We had only several fall unit with no winter equipment. So we were really very cold and miserable. Well, we finally pushed up to north of Luxembourg and pushed east to the Rhine River and crossed the Rhine, came north and took Frankfurt. And then we turned east across Germany. We went like this across Germany. It's now getting to be March and April. And as I come along, I say, you know, the Germans know they're beaten. Why are they doing all this, still fighting? I come across these dead soldiers, our men and their men, and I think, oh my gosh, it's time to get out of this stuff. The SS troops in town would build a big roadblock. We came along, they beat it. Put the kids out there with guns. 15-year-old kids fighting us. Ridiculous. Most of the time they just run. We killed a few of them, and it's terrible. Didn't want to. We didn't know where they were until we got there. Came on through. As a matter of fact, down in Regensburg, a German town, the Catholic priest goes up and said, let's stop the war, it's terrible. The SS had him hanging from a rope pole for about half an hour. Well, we kept fighting, Hitler said you had to. And we pushed across there and got over to Czechoslovakia. Now over here, we across Czechoslovakia, we came into a little place, we went to a little town in eastern Germany called Flossenburg. We took that. This was the infamous Flossenburg concentration camp. But many all over Europe, Germany, Poland, Russia, horrible, horrible places. This was small, but nonetheless, no one worse one at all, no worse than others. It was incredible. I was the first doctor into it. I walked in, we marched out all to go walk, the SS had, a couple of days before, going south, trying to get the dock out. They never got there. They were knocked out by the American tanks and get liberated. But there's still people in the camp, many, 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 who were hidden out. Some were too sick to move, and there they were. Now, I walked into the camp, barbed wire, 3 strands of it around, 1 electrified, and I went first to the thing to the hospital. It wasn't a hospital. A big barn with a straw-covered floor. We dumped a dying to die. Every day, they push a cart through the camp. Maybe about 30 or 40 had died during the night. Bring him in here, where they burned him. These guys are still living, but dying. I walk in, kneel down, pick a guy's hand, a black guy, go back and die. I couldn't do anything. I felt helpless. The doctor, what could they do? Nothing. They couldn't eat. They choked it. They couldn't take a thing. And eat for so long, couldn't eat anything. I knew behind me would be big army units coming in with hospitals, and they'd take care of it and intervene, but I couldn't do a doggone thing. I saw the crematory where all these guys were being burned as they died. 3 big furnaces, 4 each line. 2 were running. One of the cables opened, the big cable was in there, 3 bodies cracking in the flames. Beside there were 25 more to be burned, each about 40 pounds. It was incredible. And we saw the places with the SS general, the doctor had been there. Terrible guy, cruel. Stupid operations, just for fun of it. He would knock a prisoner down and come to ask for some help. He was incredibly bad. It was hard to believe what was going on here. Every time I talk about this, I could talk another hour, so I'll stop here. But if you say, people say it never happened, believe me, ask them to see me. I saw it, I know, it did happen. Well, we pulled on then to the east, got to Czechoslovakia, place called Susici, right in here. And every town we came into had two signs on the side. Welcome, America, welcome in Russian. We would get there first, they didn't know. Well, we got then to the Western Czechoslovakia, and Patton said, go. There's nothing between you and the Germans when it's turned to us. Instead of the Russians, so go take it. Before we started, Safe headquarters said, stop. That's Russian territory, don't move. We couldn't move. The troops up, the people up in some of the cities heard we were coming in and started right up in revolt. The SS are shooting them down. Our tankers volunteered to take a tank force in and clean them out. We let them go. We sat there. Russians sent the whole army from the north to a week to march down there with the conquering heroes. We met them there. The Iron Curtain clamped right down there. We couldn't go anywhere from that on. Well, we're out in the aid station, or the headquarters rather, the county command post there, one day, May 7th, and the phone rang. Sharon said, well, the war's over. Germans surrendered. Nobody stopped and shouted, and shot with a gun. He stood there. Too often we talk about this. The war's over. I might make it back alive, maybe. So we were there for a short time, pulled back into Germany, occupation duty, and then were there for some time. Atomic bombs dropped, then came home. That's my story about what we did. Any questions or comments, or if you want to say, go right ahead. I'm welcome to anything like to say. Yes?
I'd like to make a comment and also a couple of questions. You know, this Lord Haha you mentioned, he was a native of Hoka, Minnesota.
Was he really?
Yes. And because I read about him, it was about a few years after the war.
Yeah.
And I think he got 10 years or so.
He did.
Yeah. Yeah, he was of Irish descent, and then he went to, I think he worked in Germany before the war or something,
Yeah.
and then somehow he got in with Hitler.
Yeah.
And then just yesterday in the Post Bulletin, they mentioned about one, she was a producer, this one woman.
Yes,
died,
I read about that
101 years old.
too.
But the logistics of it, like you mentioned, you had to set up hospitals. Did you have the units to bring in water and generators for electricity, and was that a big problem?
Well, yes. With us in the 80s, we had nothing like that. We simply got our water from the engineer water point back a few miles in the rear and brought it up in big buckets, and we'd fill our canteens from that. No electricity at all. We worked in the dark.
And then when you have so many wounded and dying people, I imagine you were overwhelmed.
Oh, we were. Well, we used flashlights, of course, working at night on the guys we brought in. Most of it during the day of the fighting. We got some at night, of course. I've never forgotten many things. One, at 2 o'clock in the morning, brought in a major I know quite well, liked him very much, one of our guys had a chest wound. I worked there for an hour, with a sucking wound in the chest, trying to save his life, and lost it. I felt terrible. I couldn't see.
But you did a good job.
Flashlights, yes. Question?
Bill, they call you a surgeon, but you weren't trained as a surgeon.
No.
What kind of training did you have to deal with war wounds?
Okay, I graduated in 42 from medical school, had 1 year of internship, went in the Army. Now, an internship, I was rotating. I had surgery, some, internal medicine, EMT, OBGYN, all that stuff like that. I wasn't really trained, but of course, first aid work I knew. We all knew that in medical school, what to do and stop bleeding and fix wound, all kind of stuff, such fractures. So we knew what to do, but no special training. They hadn't trained us at all about what to do in the way of aid stations. You know, first 6 weeks after I got into the Army, I went to the Medical Field Service School, Corral, Pennsylvania, to make Army doctors out of civilian doctors. Learned how to salute, who to salute, how to wear uniforms, all that kind of stuff. And night courses on compasses, but nothing about being a sad surgeon, so no one taught us a thing about that. So, first day working, yes.
Yes, well, just a comment and a question. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, thank you.
It reminds us of things that we maybe have forgotten or never knew. And also, I was just reading a book by Andy Rooney yesterday, he's written a wonderful book about his experiences
Did he?
called My War.
Oh, yeah.
And, but I was reading another book of his yesterday, and he was talking about Lord Haw Haw and what their reaction was to Lord Haw Haw. Didn't take him too seriously.
No, we didn't take it seriously.
Right.
Or actually Sally either.
And my question was, when you were landing, or when you were going through Normandy, were there still French citizens and residents there?
Oh, yes.
And how did you interact with them, and how were you
Well,
received by
Oh,
them?
we got into the French towns and, oh, merci, merci, liberators, all cheering and shouting, waving flags, and they couldn't be happier. Again, we're rescued, merci, merci. They still feel the same way in Normandy. I'll get back there many times. Always you meet them, oh, merci, your liberators, there you are. Never forgot. And one place I remember we came during a break across France, we're heading on east. We stopped in a convoy, a little schoolhouse, a French schoolhouse. Out came about a whole bunch of school kids, about probably 7th, 6th, or 8th grade, and lined up there in front of us and sang as loud as they could, the Marseillaise, the national anthem. They hadn't been able to sing it, listen to it, or play it during the war with the Germans. Couldn't play it all. So they were shouting it as loud as they could, the kids were. And the girls gave us all bouquets and kisses and passed out wine and everything else. Yes.
Thank you.
How did the German population receive you?
Well, that's interesting. We got into Germany, and they're all very quiet, and hung white flags out in the towns, and didn't fight at all, and just kind of right through there, and didn't say much of anything. After the war, I was back in occupation in Germany for some months. I never met a German who was for Hitler, he said. Now, of course, they all were. Oh, no, I didn't like that guy. I wouldn't fight him. No, they turned it back down. You know, it's interesting. I've been back many times to Europe. Been to Germany a few times. I get back into Germany, and I see a uniform. I freeze. Maybe it might be a army, well, it's like a fireman, I don't know, but when I leave there, I somehow feel, well, I'm out now, so I don't know. I know I'm also German, they're our allies now, I know that. I've got German friends, but I can't shake that feeling. Yes?
Doctor, you said that the Battle of the Bulge and probably D-Day, were those the two worst things that you probably saw?
I think so.
And I guess my comment would, and maybe you don't have an impression, about the strategy and the leadership of the war, Eisenhower, Patton, some of the top generals. Were you aware of what was going on? Because it looks like you...
Nothing. We were, as I said, I went to a worm's eye view of the war.
I
Not command at all.
I missed
We
that.
knew where we were going. One thing that happened, we didn't know why. We were heading east. We got up to Metz in there, and we ran out of gas. We couldn't go. We had no gas. We ran out of ammunition. We couldn't fire any guns. We sat there for 3 days to get some more. It turned out that they sent them all to Montgomery to try that bridge too far through Holland and so they gave all the stuff they had, all the equipment, tanks, guns, and gas. We had none for a while. We finally got it and got going again. By the time we had, Germans had gone back and occupied all those forts. So I talked to one of the guys in the reconnaissance group. He said we were behind there. We went behind German lines back there for about 40 miles. Saw nothing. By the time we got there, 3 days later, they did not come back in to the forts and occupied.
One other question, and
Yeah.
you probably answered it. You had a worm's eye view. Were you aware at all what was happening in the Pacific Theater, of how the war was going, or
Very
anything?
little.
That
No. We knew, we had these Stars and Stripes that come out, we read now and then in the magazine, but we rarely saw that. We were out in front fighting too much, but we knew what was going on. They were making progress, but that's all we knew. Of course, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you should tell the story about the little girls in the basement.
Well, yeah, we were coming up into in the Battle of the Bulge, into Luxembourg. I came up one night, had a fine place in the aid station, it could eat dark in the evening now, and looked down at tar shops. It had all been knocked apart. Everything was down almost in the bombing and fighting. And here I found a house that I could finally move into. It was mostly intact. big hole in the front wall. We walked inside and found a dead body on the floor. A woman had been killed by a big shell came through there. Moved the body out in the cold and put a big blanket across it to make a blackout and went to work. That evening, my men said, "Captain, there are people back here." They brought out a woman and her sister and two little girls. They were about 8 and 10. Been there for about 6 weeks during all the fighting. They thought, the parents thought, the father thought that the Germans had come through Luxembourg City, the south. They did, they came north. And so they were caught in the middle of this thing, near Bastogne, where they were, in Luxembourg, near the border. And they were miserable there, cold, hungry, starved. The Germans took all the food they had. And the Germans pulled out once we came in there. And they were in the middle of the back room someplace, in a barn, eating only raw potatoes, nothing else to eat. And girls had some scabies on their skin, and I cleaned the kids up, and we fed them, but one of the girls had pneumonia. So I put them in the ambulance and went back to the hospital. And I forgot about it. My jeep driver was Peter Wheels, was North St. Paul. He spoke fluent German. Talked to them, hadn't got their name and address. The word wrote to them, wrote to him. On my address, wrote to me, and we were fast friends ever since. When we get back to Luxembourg, we met how they rolled a red carpet out for us. And we had to go back to visit. And one of the girls married to a lawyer who now teaches at the Supreme Court in Luxembourg. And they have their own kids now, they're grown, of course, but they never forgot us, and we didn't forget them either. Yes.
In the combat that your, the 90th Division had, how did that compare, if you know in any way, to the other divisions?
Yeah, well, like I said, we had the most
What was
days.
your casualty
Well, we had the most days in common, the Division European Theater. And the second highest casualty rate, the first highest was the one that came on Omaha Beach, Bloody Omaha. That was the, I think, the second division there, tremendous, more than we had, that's all. We were the highest, second highest in the whole outfit. 15,000 of our riflemen were killed out of 3,200 in the outfit. So we had a tremendous casualty rate, and we were busy, yes.
Did you ever hear about the mortality rate among battalion surgeons?
Well, I tore over one battalion because it had been hit with a shell, and both of them were hurt back in the hospital, both surgeons. Two others died, but most of the guys made it through, like I did. We were lucky. Two died, of course. One of my classmates in medical school died, yes.
Well, you said that you didn't have any winter clothing or equipment in the wintertime? And
Not
how
really.
did it work? How did they supply you with clothing? And you said you just stayed in the same clothes for 3 months?
During the fight across France, when things had calmed down a little bit, I remember we went back one time and said, "Hey, go back and get a shower." About 3 or 4 months we did in combat. Had my clothes off in 3 or 4 months. It must have smelled terrible, of course, we all smell the same. All I said anyway. Well, I had lice twice, by the way. Well, we went back to the rear, about 3 years at a time. 2 great big tents, and we walked in one tent. It was now in the fall, kind of a cool day. Took all our clothes off, dropped in a big pile inside, walked in the tent naked, and there was a big pipe with water coming out of it, showers all along the line. We gave us soap and water, we soaped good and cleaned up good. Walked to the other side of the tent, got a towel and dried off good. Walked outside the next tent, and there were a bunch of clothes. You pick up the uniform you can wear to fit you, a new uniform, new shirt, underwear, pants, and all the rest, and find a pair of shoes that fit you, and then you run away. New uniform, everything, way we changed.
Wow.
No washing.
Well, but why didn't they have any winter clothes for you?
You know, I don't know. I read the account of this. Someone said the general, someone who was in charge of the whole supply system, lived in Paris, in luxury. He wasn't worried much about it. Well, the world would be over by Christmas anyway. He didn't worry about a doggone thing about supplying anybody. Well, he should have, because we were suffering because of that. It didn't. It was their fault, but they didn't. They had winter equipment back there. We didn't get. We got some equipment about March sometime, a little bit, but too late to tell us much. Yes.
Are copies of your book still available?
Beg pardon?
Copies of your book still available?
Yeah, as I said, Mr. Hunsinger, I have republished it recently, 1,000 copies at home. If you'd like to make a list, give to him, all the people who want it, I'll be glad to bring some copies down and leave them here for you. And I'll inscribe them to your name if you want to put your name down too. I'll give them to him and leave them out here and pick them up by Houston with your name on it. If that's okay with you.
Can we leave our payment with John also?
Well.
Trustworthy, in other words?
As far as paying for it, if you want to pay $10, that's fine, but I did it at my own expense and for interest and not trying to make money, so if you don't pay me a thing, I'm not going to give them to you. If you want to give them $10, well, that's fine. I might get it back, I don't know.
The copy still exists for money, I was just curious.
I need 13.
Yes.
Did you ever get your combat boots replaced by those shoe packs that came out
No,
in December?
no. We had only K rations. These were, they give us about enough for about 2 or 3 days, and each with one box about this long, this high, this deep, and one for breakfast, one lunch, and one supper. And the breakfast one, you have some a can of scrambled eggs and bacon maybe, and then there'd be some rolls and coffee, coffee crystals, and some sugar, and 2 cigarettes, and toilet paper. That's about it. Lunch was a big hunk of cheese, and some more good rolls, big candy bar, and 2 cigarettes. And supper was in a can of maybe chopped ham loaf, and again some cookies, biscuits, 2 cigarettes, and a few more things. That's about it. So we ate that, all we had, the whole time across the war.
Did they make a smoker out of you, Doctor?
No, I never smoked, never smoked in my life.
Good for you.
I'll get all my cigarettes and I got them too.
Do you have any comment on how they're fighting today's war?
Well, it's quite different. And this is bad, they're getting killed and shot and wounded, so no better than that was, but a little bit more comfort, I guess, and better food. And I know some of the way they do it now with the food, they have these hot things, you can just do something, press something on a button and push it over and you get a hot meal comes out. So things like that they have, but it's still no good for a war, it's still killing, shooting.
You did a good job of explaining, and like Patton one time mentioned, war is hell. People read about those things, they'll think twice before going to war.
Oh, yeah.
I know even in Korea, I was in the front line, but I didn't see as many things as you did, but I saw a few things and you never forget those things.
No, you can't forget them. And Patton was a tremendous leader. I think the best leader of troops in the war. Terrible if he'd been Eisenhower's job, no diplomat. But he was terrific with us. We really admired that guy. What he said, he'd go fourth Army Division, we walk on Normandy. Down that road, don't stop for anything. Got a gas, get out and walk. Well, one guy said we shot him. We pushed him a front 40 miles long and 40 feet wide into France. But he had the airborne covering his airport, his flank. He knew during they were there. You always would cover your flanks, of course. He didn't because he knew what was out there. He was very smart.
Alan?
Yes, question.
If anybody wants to sign up for a copy of the book, I've got a list. We'll have them at the next Princess Cafe or out at the desk. And if you would pay me the $10, that would simplify things.
You don't have to pay the $10.
Sure you do.
Sir, you had a question about combat boots?
Yeah, I didn't get an answer.
He asked a
Oh, I'm
question
sorry.
about boots.
We had combat boots.
But when they changed to boot packs about one-piece packs instead of
Shoes,
combat
boots, combat boots, shoes. Yeah.
You kept your combat boots all through the war?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we had one pair that we put on. We had the 2 laces on top, 2 little straps coming across the top. At first we came with just ordinary shoes on, and the fatigues, quickly tossed those away and used the combat boots, and we did. By the way, to say we had that walk out of Normandy, soaking wet, going across to the first place we were going to meet in Normandy there. we've been soaking wet, of course. What we had on was wool underwear and wool ODs and gas, impregnated fatigue suits in case the Germans shoot poison gas at us, what they thought they might do. Well, we carried gas mask, you know, the first month or so. Well, the time we got there, when they were in or out in these fatigue suits, bleeding block, we were sweating like the dickens. My groins are rubbed raw and bleeding. The wool rubbing back and forth across the wet wool on my leg. It was miserable. Got there and had to stop.
Where did you cross the line?
When they what?
Where did you cross the Rhine River?
Oh, the Rhine River
Once?
was in, probably in March, I think.
Where?
When? Where?
Yeah.
Oppenheim, south of Frankfurt.
Yeah.
Put east and came north to Frankfurt. Right. Oppenheim, in Germany.
Anybody else? Questions? Otherwise, I'm sure.
Thank you.
I was, Bill Wallace. Oh, Bill. Oh,